I just think it's interesting how someone can be that hate-filled and then call anyone else a member of a cult. I've actually started counteracting by saying, wow, you guys with your pitchforks out here, it seems like a pretty toxic cult you're part of. Just chasing around a movie director. So it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, and also, my general philosophy, because I've told you about this, not on air, but, like, how I separate, like, an actor and their work.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same with, like, directors and stuff, and if they have a movie that has a philosophy that's opposed to what I believe, I can still take the good and focus on that. That's why I like Wonder Woman, despite the fact that people have made some decent complaints against it, but I just don't let those things bother me. I just ignore them, and I look at the good stuff, and I get to enjoy a Wonder Woman movie.
I also don't think that a director, because directors don't generally write their movies. I know that Zack was involved in the writing of this, but it's just, I think a good writer or a good director or anything, and I can't believe I'm using Joss Whedon to disprove something about Zack Snyder, but there's a line in the Avengers movie where Cap says, she's like, oh, that's Loki and Thor, they're basically gods. It's like, there's only one god, and he doesn't dress like that. Joss Whedon is an atheist, but he's like, that's what the character would say, so that's what I wrote. And even if you don't think Zack's capable of pulling back, if you truly think you know his worldview, despite not knowing him personally, young Clark Kent is reading Plato in Man of Steel, which is pretty much the opposite of, like, Randian philosophy. Yeah. So, again, that's just, like, a funny thing, how people could literally be offended by... It's like a Fast and Furious movie. It's brain dead.
I wonder how these people accusing him of Randian philosophy actually know what Ayn Rand's philosophy was.
I think they've just played BioShock, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, because they pull a lot from that, and it follows I think, very clearly from the story of Fountainhead.
Yeah, which is a movie, or a story that Zack Snyder said he wanted to adapt, which is why people assume that's his philosophy, but...
Or like Jojo Rabbit, the main character is a Nazi, is a Hitler youth. I don't think that...
But also isn't it poking fun at Nazism and, like hating others? And
it was, from what I've heard from people who are more knowledgeable on the subject, they said it was a very realistic depiction at the ridiculousness that, like, how Hitler was kind of talking, how people were kind of trained to grow up, and from the view of a child who kind of didn't question that kind of stuff, sort of realizing the world's more complicated than Hitler was trying to lead Germany to believe.
Which I think we can all agree Hitler was not correct. So
yeah,
that's the official Poppycock stance. Hitler was wrong. Hot take.
Ooh.
But I do want to cycle back to the insanity and cool fun of Zack Snyder's new movie. But there's another movie that you don't know about that's interesting. What if I told you that Bert Kreischer was making his first feature movie with, guess a celebrity?
See, Bert Kreischer, who would he want to work with? I have to think about how his brain works and who he would... I'm gonna say... maybe Mark Hamill? Like...
Yeah.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it is Mark Hamill.
I was trying to think, like, who is someone who...
Did you already know about this?
No, I thought it was, like, who's someone he would respect and who's someone... That person would have to have a good enough sense of humor that he would be...
They just shot a video of Mark Hamill being like, I can't discuss what it is, and he's got his two dogs, like Millie and Mia, or whatever their name, like, curled up next to him on this private jet, and then Bert Kreischer walks out shirtless drinking. He's like, oh, I didn't know you were filming. So they both shot their own, like, little promo video to, like, jokingly announce it, and he's like, well, I'm so marginally excited about my new project. It's the adaptation of his story, The Machine. Mark Hamill plays his dad. About him in college.
And actually accidentally befriending the Russian mob.
And robbing a train. And yeah, the whole thing to sort of put him on the map so he could go and work for Travel Channel, become a stand-up comedian, sort of create this whole lifestyle brand, endorsing things like Liquid Death Water, which I admit is delicious.
Yeah, it comes from the Austrian Alps.
Yep, I'm drinking Arnold's water. I'm going to have a Terminator body. But yeah, no, they're making a feature movie about... And it's Bert Kreischer, I assume, playing himself.
I'm proud of myself for predicting that.
Yeah, well, it's like whenever I knew what you were going to... I was like, who do you think would be a good Commissioner Gordon? I knew you were going to say Bryan Cranston last night.
Yeah, that... It's weird. I think we spent too much time together.
Well, I think that's more or less just...
Granted, mine was clairvoyance at that point. Well, deductive reasoning.
Is it deductive or inductive reason? There's two types, and I know Sherlock Holmes always uses the wrong one in his descriptions.
Inductive comes from nothing. Deductive is like deducing from evidence given. And you said Bert Kreischer working with an actor, and so I took, okay, who's an actor Bert Kreischer would love to work with versus who's an actor who he would like, who also has a good enough sense of humor to work with him. And Mark Hamill, his Twitter is Hamill himself.
Yeah. But now he can finally say that Luke is his father.
Oh my goodness.
Which, do you think this means that we could say canonically within Star Wars, Luke Skywalker did have a son, but he was just Bert Kreischer and he never really amounted to anything, and so he's just like partying off in a cantina somewhere. He's doing stand-up in a cantina.
I am the droid.
We've just created a very weird Elseworld fan fiction that someone can grab and run.
I think that would definitely be something like an audiobook I would read, or like an audiobook I would listen to, but I would want someone dramatically, like Alan Rickman. Like I would want him to read it.
Is he dead?
Yes, he's been dead for a while.
Well, that'll be difficult to do, but
like an Alan Rickman type, where it's like very serious. But he's
crazy that you got Mark Hamill correct. But the reason that story is so special to me, aside from the fact that Sam decides he needs to microwave right now, is because actually going back, me and Sam, when we were in that horrible, you remember when we did that advanced algebra class? It was a semester's worth of work over the course of like a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
We had early class, then we'd have late class, and it was just I woke up solving equations, and I'm dyslexic, so that was unfortunate. The whole thing was a nightmare, and the only place we could go to do our homework, because we were stuck there all day, was in the Hammer. It was called the Hammer Center, which is like the student activity center, which, funnily enough, named after Armand Hammer, grandfather of Armie Hammer, now known cannibal and actor. So there's a nice little tie-in. But Sam and I, that was like, someone shared the machines, the stand-up Bert Kreischer machine story, and it was so like funny and interesting. It was the one thing that we really got to like enjoy. It was like the one treat we accidentally discovered, and I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a very genuinely nice person as well. I think he's got a good heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Machine. Oh, and guess what studio's making it?
Ooh, Universal?
No, but very close. A very similar studio.
Paramount.
Legendary. The Godzilla guys.
Oh,
another big thing. The Legendary, I think, is helping. Legendary and Netflix are adapting the Gundam anime into a live action. Guess who's directing that?
Please tell me Guillermo del Toro.
I would say this is a very nearly lateral move. Jordan Vogt-Roberts of Kong Skull Island fame, and soon to be Metal Gear with Oscar Isaac.
Okay.
I mean, he knows how to make anime and live action, because he put a lot of anime-isms into Kong Skull Island.
He's like the Wachowskis, but not pretentious.
But yeah. So I think that's nifty.
Yeah.
I didn't actually like Godzilla vs. Kong that much. The whole tone, I think they shifted it to be more like fun and kiddie, which is fine, because like the original, like if you go back and watch the old black and white movies, it's silly, and they're like aliens who are like, we will help you, and they're fairies that follow around. Just lost at the butterfly. Mothra, not a butterfly. That's why it was throwing me off. Very beautiful though, but the way that they're portrayed in all of the movies up until Godzilla vs. Kong is very like mythic and ornate and this force of nature, and the camera angles are always really low, or like you could really have it from a helicopter or something. And in Godzilla and Kong, the fight scenes are cool, and the sound design is fantastic, and the soundtrack is very cool, but entire characters were cut from the whole thing. They changed the story over and over again, and this isn't a case of Warner Brothers pushing that. This was the director likes that, and that's his personal preference, and if you support the director's choice, then their choice to make a dumber movie is still their choice. So I respect that. I think it was the wrong choice, but I respect that he had control over it.
Yeah.
And it's just all of them felt very animated and cartoony as opposed to these big mythic monsters. I think you can't fault it, because that's what the old movies were like, but I really like that sort of like grand, like a pterodactyl so big that when it flies overhead, it rips up cars with the upswell of force underneath its wings in the wind, and like people are being sucked into the sky by it. That is like...
That's something the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's a nonsense name, but it it had very fluid animation for its mechs that were fighting these weird sort of celestial, different dimension creatures they called angels. Because there was this weird thing that kept bleeding in from...
Sort of a Death Stranding situation.
Yeah, but they all kind of looked different, and they all were trying to just wipe out humanity. How they filmed the mechs, sort of, for the animation, because they had the animation be very fluid and beautiful for the mechs, but a lot of time they had it where you see the command center and they have cameras that are very far away zooming in, and so you kind of see debris and little glimpses of it, so that you could save... So when you did see them up close, you got, like, fluid animation, you had the sense of movement, and also, a lot of times, they had plugs in their back, like long cords, because they didn't have, like, nuclear reactors or anything, they were plugged in. And the moment they got unplugged, a timer started going, and they had 12 seconds to kill something.
That's high stakes.
Yeah, and so you're seeing like the timer go down, and they cut that in between, and they minimize the amount of time you're actually looking at the mech fighting, so much that it's actually beautiful, and they throw some nice twists in there. But then at the end, it goes very... It's like if it suddenly became Inception with weird reality unfolding on itself and... dream logic.
Yeah, long-standing franchises often struggle to stick the landing.
Well, apparently the reason for that was the creator had made it as a allegory for him struggling with anxiety and depression. And so that was sort of him dealing with it.
Interesting.
And then he had to create an alternate ending because people got upset, but it was just as incoherent and kind of pessimistic.
Sort of Mass Effect style.
Yeah, and it was... I get where he's going with it, but my theory constantly was, because there's a... They find out that they make the mechs based on the...
Angels?
Yeah. And because at one of the, like, mechs, like, gets hurt critically, like, loses his arm, and you see its metal start to bulge out and skin start to, like, muscles pull it open, and you see there's an eye. And you realize that's why they're connected into the brain of it, like an artificial brain. It's because it's a tube in the back of its head connected into the brain of this, what is effectively a surgically altered angel.
Good God.
And it starts going feral and start attacking stuff. My theory was, because they have one that's seen in the depths.
Yeah.
Like, so all those angels are just on a rescue mission trying to save it, and humanity's kind of the bad guy. Like, maybe that's going to be the twist. That's
I've never seen it, but I like that.
Yeah, no, not the case. Though at one point you do see, like, a human pilot kid thing, and it turns out he's one of those angels that had taken a form of a child. And at one point, whenever they start trying to go after him, he starts just floating down, like, deflecting missiles Super Saiyan style. Just like backhanding them. And also there's a weird spear thing that when it's thrown, it actually parts the atmosphere when it goes through. And like, it's like they do a nice job with scale. Like you were saying with like Kong and Godzilla and the previous ones. Like, there's another thing that had amazing scale for everything.
Yeah, it's I think if you're going into it expecting a dumb monster movie, you're not going to be upset, but I feel like the bar had just been raised by the previous monster movies that I was like, so they're actually like they're going for a sort of tone and aesthetic for all this, and I sort of fell in love with it over the course of Godzilla, then Kong, and then Godzilla King of Monsters. That's a 3-movie precedence. It takes 3 points to plot a trend, thus I had one. So it was a little upsetting. But, again, it's like a Fast and Furious movie. If it doesn't act very smart, you can't really blame it.
I could see them doing, like, maybe an anime set in a similar but not the same world that sort of deals with the same plot, and it's sort of like, here, we're going to do the scale for it. So that way, if you desperately wanted to see that epic fight...
Oh, my God.
Or, read the article that I wrote about
your pitch for Godzilla. I gotta go revisit that now that I've seen the movie and compare and contrast the two. Yeah. I will say, I think you said at one point that Kong would wield a weapon.
I said that that's sort of how he would even the odds against...
He does. That is how he evens the odds.
He picks up, he would start hiding around, and like as Kong's like, or as Godzilla's going between buildings, see Kong's on top of one, and he just like drops a piece of building on top of him. That
is a plot point for part of the fight.
Then I called it.
But I just came to a conclusion. This can be sort of the finale here. Imagine Guillermo del Toro's Ninja Turtles. That'd be really wild.
You get some beautiful visuals out there.
I'm just thinking what he did with Hellboy, which is a very distinct art style, bringing it, which I guess is a good way to announce that one of our next episodes can be, we're going to watch the failed reboot of Hellboy, which we refer to as Heckfella, because he's not the real Hellboy in our eyes, for the first time. And immediately, also, I'm introducing that whole world to my wife, who's only seen Hellboy and Injustice.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna cleanse the palette with the real Hellboy 1.
Yeah.
And just do a compare and contrast for, like, despite having 10 plus years of, like,
because
knowledge.
they're both introductions to the Hellboy universe.
So sort of a who did it better.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be some things that are good about the new one.
I'm pretty sure Abe Sapien is not in.
Oh, I'm almost 100% certain of that.
Like, they went for different characters that
Which is fine, but Abe Sapien was so good.
I will say, they'll get points, not, like, enough for a passing grade, but, like, extra credit if they show how Hellboy met Liz.
I don't think Liz is even in it.
Oh, well then...
that's the case.
Yeah, well, they don't get the bonus points then.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been enough to give him a passing grade, but they could have come up to you and been like, hey, can I just withdraw without a failing grade, like an incomplete, and then I can retake it, because I don't want my GPA to drop. And you would have been, you know what, you did try. You got a few things right that a lot of the other students didn't.
Yeah, the teacher would respect it.
So I'll allow it. But no. So, yeah, I'm trying to be positive, but as I've pointed out before, David Harbour, is that the name of the actor?
Yes, I was trying to remember.
And I'm not going to hate on him for not being Ron Perlman. That's not his fault that he wasn't born Ronald Perlmanian. But I will say that the mask that they gave him to wear to be Hellboy just looks like Dorian Tyrell, the villain from The Mask, if they painted it like peach, not even fully red.
Yeah, and also...
He looks like an ugly crack fiend.
I will say, I'm pretty sure they give him the barbed, demon tail, which apparently he did not have in Hellboy 1.
He didn't have a tail?
He didn't have the barbed tail.
Barbed tail? What do you mean barbed tail?
Like the devil tail, classic devil tail, where it has, like,
where at the end it has,
the arrowhead. He didn't have that. It was just a monkey tail.
I think you might be correct. Did they change that between 1 and 2?
No, and 2, it, like, his tail gets attacked by things, and then you assume, like, oh, that's why it looks that way. But apparently it was always like that, where it was just kind of a monkey tail. Because there's a part in Hellboy 1 where he takes beer cans.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why I was thinking you're probably right.
Yeah, and he does it with his tail so he doesn't get caught and ends up, and you see...
I understand that the new movie was probably going for a different tone, for a different vibe, because admittedly there are elements of the Del Toro treatment that aren't comic accurate.
I still think, and I told this to you, Zack Snyder should make Hellboy, because he has goggles and constantly having the biblical, like...
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good one.
He will one day bring about the apocalypse. Like, 100% that is what he would be for.
I feel like Netflix could probably get the rights to that property on the cheap right now.
Yeah.
And right now Snyder's riding that high. He's sort of like, oh yeah, no, making this zombie movie was the opposite of making Justice League. It was so easy. They just gave me complete creative control. And, of course, notable comedian and actress Tig Notaro digitally replaces Chris D'Elia flawlessly. Well, I could not tell she was fully filmed on a green screen. I bet those actors are kind of pissed, though, they didn't get to meet her, because she seems cool.
Yeah, she seems like... She's one of those stand-up comedians that, like, I hear about... Like, I saw her first in Star Trek Discovery, then I started watching Community.
Which we need to catch up. Apparently season 3 of Discovery's gone. I usually wait for Picard to come back, because I really like Jean-Luc Picard.
Well, like, I first saw... Then Community happened, she has a guest appearance there.
Who's she?
She's like a bartender when...
Oh, right!
Yeah,
when Annie's pretending to be old enough to drink, and she comes up with that. She comes up with a fake accent.
Yeah, and
I do declare.
And she has sort of an identity crisis.
Was that Troy's birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a whole thing, and ever since that, I've sort of looked into stuff that she's done, like her stand-up and various like stuff. She just seems like a really chill person, and her tweets that's like, I relate to blenders because I also scream while I do my job.
I should follow her. I don't follow her. I should do that. I think, again, I said this off air, she's like a Stanley Tucci.
Yeah.
As soon as you hear, like, I don't know if this person's in it, oh, well, then it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, they signed off on it, yeah.
And even in the Transformers movies, Stanley Tucci's parts, tolerable. Everything else, pretty bad, but no matter how much camera shake and bad CGI and product placement they shoved into Stanley Tucci's scenes, he was still funny.
Yeah.
That's raw power. To be able to make me like parts of the later Michael Bay movies.
Netflix did a thing that was called, like, Quiet or something like that. It's a horror movie where aliens take over the world
Yeah.
and they hear sound and you have to be quiet.
Because it's a quiet place.
Yeah, but Stanley Tucci's in it. And so at first I was like, oh, this seems like crap. They're just ripping off a better movie. And then I saw Stanley Tucci's in it. It's like, okay, I'll add it to my list.
Also,
I'll watch it.
There's a movie with the Doctor from Doctor Who that I dislike the most. The one that doesn't have eyebrows.
Matt Smith.
That's the one. Where there are a bunch of people who are infected with like a virus and they become like raging sort of I Am Legend type monsters, sort of zombie vampire. You can't tell which is which. Stanley Tucci is the only person to be infected. He has like these monstrous yellow eyes, but he has full control, and he's like a monster who is intelligent. And they're like, "How are you immune to it?" He's like, "I'm not immune. It's like I'm just the one that works. I'm the best version of this." And he's like the villain of it. And I'm like, this looks like it was a really low budget movie, and it looks like kind of dumb. But Stanley Tucci's in it, and so I kind of want to watch it.
At the very least, we can hate watch it.
I think what we're saying is in Zack Snyder's Hellboy, he should play Professor Broom.
Oh, yes.
You're welcome.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Oh my god, you know who he would totally get to play Hellboy? Dave Bautista. Or Joe Mangas. I don't know which direction he'd go, because he likes working with both of those actors. You know Ray Fisher would be in it somewhere.
I'm trying to think who I would cast as Hellboy if you can't get Ron Perlman, because Ron Perlman
He's in his 70s.
Ron Perlman was Hellboy, though, because they were going to swap which hand the Fist of Doom was on.
And he was like, nah.
Well, he was like, no, I'm left-handed. It makes sense. That
Also, it just makes sense. That's my one complaint, or two complaints with the Injustice version. He's really quiet-spoken, that Hellboy, and the hand switches which side it's on, which is just a fighter game thing. They had to. But it bothers the bejesus out of me. Like, it's the right hand of Doom, not the ambidextrous glove of badness.
Yeah.
Which is probably what Heckfella has. Ambidextrous glove of bad times.
Which also, it looks like it's made of, like, metal in the Heckfella movie.
Yeah, that's... Again, it's a creative choice. I'm trying to be as open as possible. I'm not going to judge it just for not being the previous movies. But I am going to judge it if it's just a bad movie.
What I judge it on is the fact that I saw beautiful fan art of Hellboy getting, Avengers card from Nick Fury. But it was Heckfella instead of Ron Perlman, so I actually went in
and fixed it?
Yeah, I photoshopped to be Ron Perlman's one, because one thing, he would be able to, because at the end of the second one, spoilers, I guess, he, leaves the bureau.
Yeah. Also, you know who else would be great? And this hypothetical Zack Snyder's Hellboy. Patton Oswalt, just in general. He's another Tig Notaro, Stanley Tucci type person. Hot take. Ninja Turtles and Hellboy should take place in the same universe. People have been trying to say they should take place in the DC universe. I say, nay, that's already overcrowded and overly rebooted. Keep it with the monsters and the myths. Perfectly fine. If you say, oh, there are aliens and unicorns in these universes, yeah, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
I'd buy it.
Yeah, I'm still trying to think who I would cast as Hellboy in a Stanley Tucci, Zack Snyder movie.
I'm telling you, Dave Bautista, that's who you go with. He's got the voice. He was great as not Marcus Phoenix, and because there's the most recent Gears you can play as, which again, Zack Snyder could do a Gears of War. Goggles, slow motion, sepia, macho men, religious imagery, sadness, family. It's like the game was made to be adapted by him. Yeah. But yeah, you can play now as Dave Bautista instead of Joe or John DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio.
Because one of them was a baseball player. One of them is the voice actor of an underrated Joker performance from Under the Red Hood.
Yes, and also Jake the dog from...
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone knows that, but that's not underrated. That's accurately rated.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who I would cast as Hellboy. It's...
Who would you cast as Abe Sapien? Because I assume your version, Zack Snyder's version, hypothetical Zack Snyder, Snack Zyder.
I would say bodywork, you get a stunt double, kind of like Ray Fisher or something.
Wait, Ray Fisher isn't a stunt double. He's an actor.
Which one am I thinking?
You're thinking of Doug Jones, who was the body double and then voice of that.
Yeah. Which he wasn't the voice in the first one.
No, he wasn't. But it's seamless.
But the voice actor didn't want to take credit, so he's not in the credits.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly Doug Jones' performance.
Yeah, and Doug Jones voiced him in the second one.
And it was so good that Mike, I never know how to say his name because it's almost Magnolia, the artist who invented and wrote and created this beautiful art style for the original Hellboys, he was like, I like your version of Abe Sapien so well, I'm going to have my Abe Sapien go through further evolutions to become like that version where he does have like psychic or like what am I thinking of? Where he puts his hands to things, he can sense it.
It was like a telekinetic type thing where he
telepathic. Telekinetic is moving, kinetic.
Yeah, well, I just thought because he had kinesthetics, sort of touching objects.
But yeah.
I don't know. Part of me wants to say get what's his nuts? The guy he made Family Guy and stuff.
No, you know. Who
I would get him to voice.
You know who I say? Thomas Middleditch. I think he could do it. Or, alternatively, you could get his partner from that hilarious improv show.
Ben Schwartz.
Ben Schwartz, who I think normally does more comedic stuff, so I think he'd be better served for that. Yeah. But I'm always willing to give a comedic actor a chance to go further. And Thomas Middleditch, I've seen do real... He's in Gods and Monsters, the Godzilla movie that I love. And in a lot of Verizon commercials. It's a weird... Some really cool stuff is happening with movies, and I genuinely think that it's interesting to see the amount of fan stuff that's coming towards this new Army of the Dead, and I hope it ignites more non-superhero movie genres.
I especially like, because I knew that it was kind of something that they had done, that Netflix had done before, but I do appreciate the fact that Netflix has started setting this trend for itself, and if they can maintain it as an actual doctrine that, like, we will not interfere with your project. As part
of their brand.
Yeah, we will. If we hire you, we're hiring you, we're not going to interfere with it.
Because, like, HBO Max... It has a lot going for it. It has so many things, so many classic shows, so many cool new originals. But they also made the choice to release all of their movies simultaneously there and in the movie theaters without first warning the directors and other studios that worked on that. I don't think it was a bad move because I think it managed to keep the studios afloat while also giving movie theaters something new to show. Because otherwise they would have just kept waiting. And it's proven to be financially successful. And now other streaming services are doing the same thing. But they didn't tell people like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan that's the stuff they wanted to do. So I think between that and the whole debacle of them mangling Snyder's legacy on that, because people have pointed out if they just had let him do what he wanted, he'd already be done. Like Justice League 3 would be coming out around now, and they could reboot with Flashpoint and make the more comic accurate version that they want instead of this sort of different take on the DC characters. But yeah, I just think that each of these streaming services has their own brand. And I definitely think that Netflix went from being sort of like, they got here first, but now they haven't really been competitive. It's just a lot of garbage they churn out, because all of their big things were shows and movies made by the studios who now have their own streaming services and are now leaving their service because their contracts aren't being renewed. So they were in a mad rush to make more content. It was usually dumb, weak, poorly made content. But now they have Zack Snyder, and they had Martin Scorsese's The Irishman a while back, and they do have these like drops of acclaim. And I think that now the narrative of this is like the paradise for creatives versus the harsh, cruel, overly studio-controlled HBO Max and Paramount Plus. And
there's that weird streaming service. It's like a different type of...
Tubi?
Yeah. I know one of the girl from the After Hours thing. She's like now a writer on one of those shows.
Well, you know,
and she's like,
a job's a job.
Yeah, and she was like, look, regardless of what you think about it, I get to write and have fun with people who are just as creative and probably better at stuff than me. So
yeah, no, I'm not going to fault a creative for having a job during a pandemic ever.
Yeah.
Or in general, if you got to put food on the table and pay a bill, a job's a job. But I did try to subscribe to that because I think T-Mobile technically covers that. We're not sponsored by them, but I am paying my bills through T-Mobile. T-Mobile, you make phone calls, we can help.
T-Mobile, we pay for your Netflix.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the reasons I still have it. But they cover Quibi as well, and I was like, maybe I'll go ahead and get that deal to subscribe for that, because they do have a Kiefer Sutherland TV show that's... What was the one with I didn't kill my wife?
Oh,
I don't
Fugitive.
Care. Yeah, The Fugitive. They remade The Fugitive or sequelized it or whatever, but this time it's the guy who had the robot arm from Logan. He was one of the Reapers.
Oh, yeah.
He says, I'll be your Huckleberry. And he's a big fan of you, Wolverine. And this one, he's the fugitive in which Kiefer Sutherland is chasing. And I do like the premise of, like, you can have it framed like a normal thing, or because it was always meant to be on the go, you can hold your phone regularly and it'll crop and always keep the action in the center. It's an interesting premise, but no one is on the go as the service launched, and most of their titles are just the worst thing that's ever existed. It's like, here's pet homes. It's like Cribs for pet homes. Here's Joel McHale's pet home for his dogs. Like, who cares? Anna Kendrick, she's got a sex doll that helps her become a feminist. I don't care. I want to see Kiefer Sutherland hunt a man. In real life, maybe with a gun. I want to see what the rich and elite do. That's a movie, right? Where like, you want to be part of the family, you have to survive the hunt. It's game night or something.
Oh, yeah.
That looked interesting.
There was a lot of TV shows on that.
There are a lot of premises for movies that are ridiculous that I'm like, that's weird, but you know it's weird, and it works.
Like that, what was it, Mom and Dad with Nicolas Cage, where parents start murdering their kids.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I know about that, but it sounds interesting.
Well, apparently Nicolas Cage's parents show up for dinner at the same time that
and they try to kill him?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I know about that. I still haven't seen it, but from what people have said when they see it, it's like, it's
Nicolas Cage would have
best.
to be in Zack Snyder's Hellboy as, like, the villain, right?
He's Rasputin.
Oh my god, I watched that. Anyway, this has been the Poppycock Podcast. We like talking about pop culture because it's all subjective, so there's no right or wrong. All of our opinions are valid. We don't have to argue with each other. It's just fun. These are nice things. You could turn off TV. You could be Amish. It wouldn't ruin your life. All of this is just something extra to enjoy. And you know what? I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying some non-comic book movies getting some hype, some new genres. I'm hoping the heist thriller genre comes back. I'm happy. And you know what? That's a good thing. Any final words?
I once knew a guy who was born blind who would constantly say, "See you later." He had a good sense of humor on him. I liked him.
Shout out to whoever you are. You sound like a cool person.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for listening. We've got dogs to take care of and tasks to accomplish. Yeah. Thanks for coming on this wild journey, including Mark Hamill, Bert Kreischer, Zack Snyder, and Tig Notaro. Yeah. What an adventure it's been.
And then a long time talking about Netflix and, Zack Snyder.
There's a lot. We covered a lot of topics.
Yeah.
And there's a reason we were originally called Off Topic.
Yeah.